conversation with the Office of the Prime Minister Communications WhatsApp channel today.
Passenger, I want to get a tattoo.
You really
respond
want
to me. Respond to me. How you would respond to me?
The first question I'll ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for, it's called loss and damage. And we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the corresponding banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region. Man
is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on WhatsApp Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
WhatsApp Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
WESN.
It's a strange case, concept of being prepared. And at times, what can derail preparation is distraction. One of the things that happens in politics a lot is distraction. One of the things that I see far too often in politics is a lack of preparation. As we come down to an election year, one of the obvious things that bothers me is the fact that a lot of parties seem to be unprepared. They don't have a sense of urgency. And there will always be things that come up, at least at that level, that could potentially derail preparation. But regardless, you still need to show us something. The election date is going to happen one way or the other. Yes, therein lies the debate on if the government should be allowed to set the date or if it should be a fixed date. I think it should be a fixed date just for other practical reasons, so that the EBC and all of the neutral third parties, I believe the EBC is neutral, but I use quotation marks to I guess, to hedge my bets. I don't have undeniable proof that they are 100% neutral. Let's put it that way. I hope they are. I think they are. I know some people don't think that, depending on if they lose in the next election or not. If the PNM loses, then they're like, some of the supporters will say that the EBC is not neutral. If the UNC loses, some of their supporters will say the EBC is not neutral. That's besides the point. In sports, you should be prepared enough and ready to play so that the refs, they don't have the ability to affect the outcome of the game. So when we see the Patriotic Front saying, oh, well, we have candidates, and who are the NTA candidates? Who are the HOPE candidates? Who are the PEP candidates? Who are the COP's candidates? That's usually what happens. A party launches, and then you don't really hear anything from them. You don't hear about their candidates. At least in HOPE's case, you heard some policy positions and suggestions. At least with the Progressive Party way back when, you got a sense of the potential philosophy of the party from Nikolai Edwards, but a philosophy is not a policy position on current issues. You're talking about pie-in-the-sky stuff maybe from yesterday, not necessarily what came up today that needs to be dealt with tomorrow. Now, in the case of the UNC and the PNM, they're in Parliament, so they're going to have more distractions per se. Ironically, what is a distraction for the PNM is technically an opportunity for everybody else. While they have to deal with being in government, all the opposition has to do, and the other parties, is watch the government, see what mistakes they make, and basically not do that. But it seems to me the UNC is not necessarily as strategic-minded at times as the PNM. Not to see the PNM are the best strategists, this side of the Atlantic, because they make their faux pas as well. But one of the things I find is very interesting is they're picking their candidates. They don't want to reveal their candidates immediately. My question is why? What's the benefit for that? Okay, if you want to wait until the end of the week or to reveal the slate, but to some extent, if you wait until all the candidates are picked and then you want to reveal everybody at the same time, I actually think that will take away from the individual conversations, the consideration and the acknowledgement and the fanfare, the hype of each individual candidate. Because you don't now have the time for their candidacy to be presented, to be digested, to be analyzed, and assuming there are positive traits to it, to say, hey, good job for so and so and so and so. What you're going to get is the analysts are going to have to rush through the whole slate. Maybe the one or two standouts will get a comment. And then I guess the goal is to focus everything on the leader, who by all rights probably will not be physically able to lead the party maybe beyond this election cycle just due to her age. And if she is, well, then it's a case where, maybe you could go one more at best. But you can't consider Kamala Prasad-Bissessar being the long-term, 4 terms of office from now. She will still be contesting the election. That's not realistic, because I think she'll be 90 by then. That's just the reality of the game. Ironically, at times, a 2-term limit, for all intents and practices in other jurisdictions, informally just finds its way upon us. Now, if Kamala won in 2015, then that policy might come into play. But now there's the very real situation. Look, even with Dr. Keith Rowley, 2-term limits, we didn't need a formal limit because he himself, was like, I've had enough. For whatever reason, we speculated on all of that. And that's the other part of preparation that I don't see. I don't see, because even the PNM was not ready for the Prime Minister to step down. And he was hinting this since 5 years ago. How do you fail to prepare unless the individual stakeholders involved weren't necessarily willing to work together to get an easy, solution to that situation? And if they, the party with the most structure and tradition and history, can't have a seamless transition. Now, they still could have it. They still could. But it seems as though they were scrambling to figure it out at the 11th hour when they had approximately 4+ years to prepare for this moment. Well, then my question is, what's the UNC going to do when that happens? But even better, do we even have that consideration for the other third parties? And I think it's because, they haven't established themselves yet. Well, establishing yourself will involve growing your party. And I guess it is a shame because I do think there are enough people, there are enough good people, there are enough smart people, there are enough capable people. I mean, for the most part, the best of us does not go up for political office. That's what it seems like, right? Given the results. Look, Reginald Amor, respected senior counsel. I don't know about his time as Attorney General. So maybe there's something about government that just takes respected technocrats and when it spits them out, it just chews them up. So it spits out some shell of themselves that does not resemble what they were when they came in. I don't know. That Miami situation was a completely unforced error, but we have enough people that these political parties should not be this unpopulated. So what's going on? What's wrong? Now, initially, my concern was a lack of preparation, a lack of urgency to grow, because it's easy to control a one-man show when there aren't that many people around you. COP right now is finding out that, hey, one of the detriments or disadvantages of democracy is, unfortunately, other people besides the leader could have a voice. That is an indirect indictment on other political situations. I'll leave it up to you to figure out which ones I'm referencing to. And I guess at the end of the day, it's kind of hard to take politics seriously when this is how, one, the potential third parties operate, and two, how the public responds to them. So it's not just the third party behavior, it's also the public behavior. We are not serious about our politics. We are like the people living in a gated community, and it's not the richest gated community anymore. It used to be a rich gated community. Something in Maraval or Cascade that was there before all of these big houses. We were the thing. And we used to be rich. We used to be one of the top spots, and rich people would come and buy townhouses in our community, and then eventually, but we're old. We're from the 70s. Our architecture is old. Our materials are old. It's difficult to grow, to modify, to modernize. So all the wealth went somewhere else. And we're watching the place, and it needs someone with a better hand to do the maintenance, to do the upkeep, to make sure all of the gardening, all of the painting, the security for the gated community is looked after, is overseen, to ensure that it's all in place. And like 95% of the owners within this gated community don't even want to show up to the meeting really. Or if they do, they just want to kind of like show up, be there for 5 minutes, vote yea or nay for the property manager, and then bust out. They don't have time for that. But this is where you live. This is to see about your interests. This happens in gated communities all the time. The people don't want to get involved, or the people who are too busy, and the people who are too busy are usually ones very capable, hence why they're busy. Hence why they value their time. And the people that we have to get involved are either the reluctant ones or the not so reluctant ones, the ambitious ones. But you see, when it's a gated community, the ambition behind having power over your community is both sillier and, I guess you could say, there's a certain level of malice that's more obvious. Maybe that's the best way to put it. Whereas now, if we scale it up to politics, it's the same human emotions that leads us to that point. People don't want to be involved, so you leave the window open for other people to be involved. People who might not have your best interests at heart. They don't actually care about the proper solution to the problem. They care about their solution to the problem. They care about feeling important. They care about having the biggest say, having the most control, having the authority. But that's the result. That's the negative consequence. The issue is not that those people exist. There will always be somebody like that. That's just human psychology. The issue, rather, is the fact that too many of the capable people don't want to get involved because they're too caught up in their own lives that they fail to identify that this is not just about service to the country and some higher ideals. As long as you live here too, it's service for yourself. And maybe that's why there's a brain drain that may be more severe than we think. Because some people acknowledge that problem, but how they respond to it is saying, well, so I need to work to improve the country in order to improve my situation, or I could just leave and go to someone else that has it all figured out. Those of you who watch basketball, that's like Kevin Durant leaving Oklahoma and going to Golden State, because I don't actually want to have to deal with my situation that I'm partially responsible for. I rather bandwagon on someone else's situation because they have it better, and I'll leave the rest of you, Westbrook, in the doldrums by yourself. No matter all of the promises of unity and brotherhood, and we'll figure it out next year, or we'll figure out the country situation, and I believe in my country and I love my country. Gone, first opportunity. All the grass is not always greener in the real world on the other side. Sometimes people will end up having to come back, no matter how well credentialed they are. It happens. Where the government is not preparing themselves well is to answer a lot of the issues that we have not gotten resolution for. This ammunition thing, but this ammunition thing is a long-term thing. But I'll close my introduction with this. Gary Griffith brings up a very good point, and I've touched on it, I've brushed on it briefly, slightly, subtly, or maybe not subtly. But maybe I haven't gone in depth in the question enough, and that is, to bring it up again, how is it that we saw the police put so much attention on private FULs, on people like Brent Thomas, on the supposed FUL rackets, okay, to the point where the court was trying to compel then, Commissioner Earlier Christopher, before she was suspended, to look in, and I think the court basically couldn't say just approve the FUL, but rather to consider it, because I guess to some extent you look at the application, there was nothing wrong with the application. And the court wanted the commissioner to give a final decision, and the commissioner, I think in multiple cases, but at least in one case twice, didn't want to do that. All of this over FPLs, legal licenses, legal firearms. All of this, I don't even know what it was. And Gary Griffin asked you the right question. What about the illegal stuff? What do you do about that? What do you use to stop that? At the end of the day, and we haven't heard, and maybe it's because, I don't know, the 25,000 rounds didn't run out. We haven't necessarily heard about too many attacks. Maybe the SOE is what's suppressing that, because running around with rifles is a lot harder than running around with pistols. Spray and pray mass murder situations or mass casualty situations. But at the end of the day, we've had them last year, the year before, etc., etc. Private FERs don't lead to that. You not approving me of having my handgun is not going to somehow make the automatic rifle epidemic of crime go away. We have to treat with that if we want it to go away. This is where the crime is a public health concern doesn't really fit, right? Because at some point, if you just make sure that people, as much people as possible, don't die to COVID, COVID will run its course. That's the nature of that type of virus. But the automatic rifle virus is not going to run its course as long as those rifles are on the streets and they can have access to ammunition. And I don't think that they shot out or they shot up all 25,000 rounds, so they probably still have access to ammunition if those rounds ended up on the local black market, which they very well might, but we don't know for sure. If we don't directly treat with it, it's not going to go away. We're not going to have immunity to 5.56 automatic fire. Someone has to do something about them. And squashing private FULs or unofficially rejecting applications by just letting it sit on your desk is not actually doing anything. I'm not saying arm the population, but if somebody does all the paperwork and qualifies for an FUL, I think at this point now, applicants need to sue the state for damages. That's where we're going to reach next. Just about everything that criminal justice touches in this country could potentially end up in a lawsuit, including their own HR practices. Think about that when we get to the next story after the break. This is Talking About a WESN show. Michael Small will be right back after this.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust. Prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
I'm back here talking about the WESN, and one of the things I want to get to today is actually a bit of an older article. It's 2 days old. I believe it might have been in the Sunday Guardian. It's a bit of a larger analytical piece with regards to the TTPS in one of the daily newspapers. $25 billion spent on TTPS in 10 years. And it has a lot of information. Doesn't necessarily have a definitive conclusion, so it doesn't go too deep with regards to opinion, but it does a good job putting a lot of important information that has been reported on by the press together to help give context to the overall situation, and that is, I think, the TTPS has a lot of issues with, as an organization, how it's being managed, how it's being run. But also, to some extent, while the focus on the piece was the TTPS, I would argue that it also indirectly speaks to organizational issues or a lack of productivity in other aspects of the criminal justice system. You know, particularly, of course, we have the prison service, the police service, the Coast Guard, and the regiment. Although the regiment is, like, maybe you could say the one with the least direct responsibility over crime fighting until you get the interagency task force and now the state of emergency, where the regiment is supposed to be helping the police service with regards to patrols and manpower and the like. But again, they're soldiers, they're not police officers. The Coast Guard, a Coast Guard, ironically, is kind of like a hybrid. You know, traditionally, that's why nations have Coast Guards and navies. We don't have a navy, so all of those functions, to some extent, has to be done by our Coast Guard. But c'est la vie, it's both a paramilitary law enforcement entity. And one of the things that the article highlights, I want to zoom in, is a lack of political will with regards to the challenges to the TTPS's efficiency and effectiveness. Because the article details, this is written by Joshua C. Mungle, the article details the budgets of the TTPS and the fact that most of it is just going on recurring expenditures, which arguably now, I guess the question is, that's up to the, I don't expect them to give us a budgetary breakdown, but this is where a closed joint select committee on some of these things may be useful, right? But the way how the JSC is set up now, if it's closed, I don't know if there will be any incentive for staying within the boundaries of good faith. But some of the things that Commissioner Hayward Christopher pointed to was a lack of speed with dealing with criminal cases. All right, to some extent, that has a lot of problems, both on the police end, on the court end, okay. Porous borders and other agencies are responsible for border control. They need to be on board. They need to be with the team to play the game. And I guess to some extent it doesn't seem that they're fully on board actually keeping the border secure. Porous prison systems where mobile devices enable communication to commit crimes. Some gangs might potentially be run in our prisons. It's not a unique phenomenon to us, but to some extent, ironically, because this is where our small scale might actually help us. The US prison system is so big and convoluted, things will slip through the cracks. Our country is so small, and our prison system is so small, there are less cracks for things to slip through, one would imagine. But I guess to some extent that's offset by the fact that, look, everybody knows everybody. And one of the things that I don't understand is, why doesn't the prison system start to do things anonymously? Have your guards wear balaclavas, not wear name tags. Don't reveal your identity to the inmates. But I guess that might be a moot point, because if you could buy off one prison officer, you'll get everybody's identities anyway. There's questions about modernization, accountability, and efficiency, right? And they have recommendations for different institutions, the TTPS institutional strengthening projects, a police inspectorate, And some of these things, police management agencies, some of these things were spoken about. I vaguely remember it was spoken about, and they point out the 2020 general election manifesto. And yet now we've come up to another election. It seems as though the one thing they promised us, more police officers, even that for the most part fell through. Is there a lack of political will to fix the police service? Because what I fear is happening is they're getting just enough to keep treading water, but the problem is, because the commissioner also pointed to archaic laws, and her example, we usually point out to areas where the laws might not cover something properly or clearly. And she does point to aspects of online or laws to govern the internet not always being sufficient because we don't have enough specific laws to directly treat with those issues, to directly state online, social media, etc., etc. But she also pointed to the fact that there are some laws where the penalties are so minor, they're just out of date and they're ineffective. And the thing is, ironically, I'm going to try to be fair for the commissioner, the suspended commissioner, the acting commissioner, but I guess to him too. The organization of the TTPS seems to be unhealthy. Apparently, members of the service were polled at one point, and their responses indicated as much. They don't see the organization being basically arranged effectively, or it was, I can't remember the exact wording, but I got the impression that they're, and I'm sure many of us have been in this situation where you're in an organization, a private institution, a non-profit institution, a government institution, what have you, and you're just watching the issues as an organization. It's not being run properly. It's not being done in a healthy manner. A lot of slackness or a lot of foolishness is happening, and it's undermining the core purpose of the organization. And on top of that, it seems as though a lot of people are either comfortable in the nonsense, or they just don't see it, they don't understand it, or they're too afraid to fix it for whatever reason. And that last part there, you know, is it that the problems are beyond the scope of the capacity of the politicians to understand? Is it that it's beyond the scope of the budget the politicians are willing to give the TTPS? Is it beyond the scope of the politics that the politicians want to operate under? Because I have heard things about members of the executive and the police and their potential connections to the elected officials or not. It's unsubstantiated, I can't repeat it. If it's true, then it implies an explanation as to why things are bad as they are, because you don't want to close loopholes that you may want to exploit down the line, if not, you're not already doing it right now. In theory. What is it? Because as time goes on, these organizational problems within the TPS are only going to get worse. They're going to compound each other. They're going to fall further and further behind. And yes, a better executive will help, but it also needs the support of the superiors, the civilian leadership who controls things like the budget and who has the ability to write new legislation. Because the police can't write new laws. The police can't say there's a problem with the penalties for this situation. If they try to essentially change what the penalty is unofficially in and amongst themselves, that will be illegal. They can't do that. They depend on the elected officials to do that, the parliamentarians to do that. So what is it? Because when the president, God bless her soul, she called for bilateral crime talks, we saw our two supposedly cherished, long-standing, most respectful political institutions pussyfoot around the topic. So the ball is in the court of the politicians because the electorate does not seem to want to hold them to account. So we just have to hope that maybe somebody catches a vaps and actually decides to look into this a bit more seriously. And that works on both sides of the aisle. I want to go to the next story. this one is interesting. Not a lot to speak about, but the implications might be bigger than we think. The heads of the PCA, both the director, PCA Director David West, as well as the Deputy Director, they're in line for a pay cut based on SRC recommendations. Now, from what I understand, the initial pay cut was more, and the current pay cut is to some extent kind of minor. I think it's something like $1,000. You know, so it'll be going from $38,000 to $37,000 and $33,000, I think, to $32,000 and change, or $31,954, so a little under $32,000 for the deputy. And they don't like that. They themselves say they weren't even consulted on this matter. And my thing is, while yes, I don't necessarily want to automatically agree with the director and deputy director of the PCA, why are you all complaining about a pay cut? What have you all done, right? On some level, I understand that. I can't fault people for having that argument. The flip side is, we're not talking about a pay rise that we don't think they deserve. We're talking about a pay cut to the office. What's the reason for it? Because to some extent, if we could cut their, are we cutting their pay for a lack of performance? But we are increasing the pay in other areas, despite arguably, subjectively, we could have a difference of opinion on this, a lack of performance. Now, the thing is, the pay decrease is so minor, one might argue, what's the point of even bothering arguing the point? But I guess to some extent, it's the principle of the thing. Why, if it's so small, why bother go through the motions to decrease the pay? What is the reason? Because it also then now begs the question, we're in the outside looking in. We don't know what the working relationship, both formally and informally, is like between the PCA, the SRC, and Cabinet. We don't know. But dare I speculate that a lot of people are going to basically wonder if this is breaching the independence, whatever level that the PCA director is supposed to have, of said PCA director. We already have questions about the police commissioner and the police service commission not being as independent as we would like, based on their actions, their statements, and how we as the public perceive it, because they don't give us enough to guarantee or defend themselves. And now one of the watchdogs, because we have a situation where our current deputy commissioner has potentially committed 2 high-profile faux pas, to put it very, very politely. And she's connected to the Professional Standards Bureau. And one of those faux pas, I believe, was done while she was head of the Professional Standards Bureau. I could be wrong about that. And the Professional Standards Bureau was, to some extent, involved in this investigation into Airlink with Christopher, which is not looking like it was executed in an effective manner. So then now, we have to ask questions. Is there anything wrong with the Professional Standards Bureau? And if there is something wrong with them, who do we fall back on? It's the PCA. And as those things are up in the air for people who know enough to have those concerns and to ask those questions, now we see somebody, a third party tangential to the situation, start to interfere with the PCA, and we don't necessarily know why. This is similar to my opinions on Erla. I don't think she's a good commissioner. I would not choose her to have the job. And at first opportunity, I wished they got someone else. But they didn't so far. Maybe they intend to do so with when the upcoming contract period ends. But this was not the way. And no matter what I think about the PCA and its effectiveness or ineffectiveness, I don't think anything is going to come good from this. I could be wrong. The thing is, the SRC could be innocent of any sort of bad faith action. Could be. But it doesn't matter. There's enough bubble and bacchanal that I don't expect this to be viewed in a positive or neutral manner. people are going to look at this, take it, and run with it as just another sign, another symptom of things going wrong in this country. It might be a minor one, it might be an inconsequential one, but a negative sign nevertheless. And the more you leave the population to speculate, the more conspiracy theories will blossom and get more fantastical. But that's not a population problem, that's a lack of communication and transparency problem. So I believe they have been given leave by everyone's, well, let me not say it that way. They have been given leave by High Court Judge Frank C. Prasad to pursue a judicial review case over this matter. I would just like to ask the government, how many things are going to be put up for judicial review before somebody figures out maybe how we are executing our responsibilities? Cabinet oversees the public service. So let's not say that you all are not involved. You all are indirectly involved regardless of if you have proactive control over the situation or not. You could have indirect, passive oversight over the situation. It is partially still your responsibility. No matter how many bad decisions other people make, they are technically under you. Even if they don't tell you about it beforehand, you're still technically responsible for them and their bad decisions. So how many things are going to be under judicial review before we start to ask the questions, hey, we're in the burning building, sitting at the desk, still drinking our coffee, saying nothing's wrong here? That's what we're doing. And let's take a break. When we'll welcome the TPS Media Ambassador. Stay tuned.
I am Dr. Delphina Ovid, your friendly neighborhood dentist. At Community Hospital Dental Clinic, we offer examinations which include x-rays, basic oral cancer screening, and a treatment plan. We also offer cleanings, fillings, extractions, root canal treatment, and complete and partial dentures. Remember, you don't have to brush and floss all your teeth, just the ones you want to keep.
Give us a call at 235-5479.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas, and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm nothing to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of this game.
no.
Let's go to the last part.
SM Group International Limited, your solutions partner for the latest innovations, brands, and competent staff to meet your needs. We provide products and services in the following divisions: executive services, event rental and services, power and heavy equipment, construction and property management, food and beverage, aggregate and sales and distribution. Check out more on our products and services at www.smgrouptt.com. Contact us at 221-7445 or email at info@smgrouptt.com. We are SM Group International, your solutions partner.
Hello there and welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. Before we even start this repatriation and reintegration process, we've already failed, or are we doomed to fail?
You've got to invest in the institutions that you've established to carry out those sorts of core functions.
We now get into the regional updates to give you an understanding of what's happening across our neighboring islands.
We have available a number of films that are worth showing.
So it was day one when the French Revolution started to develop the concept of universal human rights.
What happened this time is unprecedented. It's one of the largest terrorist attacks in history.
Let's welcome Carl to the program. Carl is over there, next to Steph. Hello, Carl.
Silky anteater or pygmy anteater, and we have two of the three species of anteaters right here.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus, quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
Welcome back to Talking About, ladies and gentlemen. Sean Michael Small here, and joining me, we of course have our media ambassador from the TTPS. He is ASP Christopher Arun. Good morning, sir.
Hi, morning. Good day. Good day to your viewers on Trinidad and Tobago.
Right, so one of the things that I wanted to speak to, and I guess this is one of those, it's in the realm of subjectivity. I messaged you yesterday. There was a murder I saw sometime over the weekend. Right. A 21-year-old. He was coming home from work. Apparently, he was going by his grandmother's house to collect his bag. He was with some friends, and some gangsters, I say that loosely, I don't know exactly what the affiliation was, started something that ended up being multiple robberies and the like. And for whatever reason, they accosted the young men, the group that the victim was a part of, and it's okay, police folks, we can't ask him to not have his phone on. And yes, the reports of one of the people who were part of the group was there. They didn't necessarily see exactly what led to him being killed, but the point is he was shot and killed. And one of the things that I do wonder now is if we need to advise the public, listen, you know, certain hours of the day, of the night, and maybe even the day, loitering around and just walking up the road and I actually saw somebody on social media walk from Belmont to Port of Spain, and I'm like, should she be walking, you know, just carefree, given these times? And if people need to be more cognizant of, look, you know, if you have to go from point A to point B, do that. Don't like take your time and lime and hang out and be on the corner. And
no, it's unfortunate that somebody would lose their lives. I mean, sympathies and to the family and the deceased relatives and whatnot, and the friends and the family. But it's sad that in an area like Tabakit, because I was out there Saturday, and it's a very quiet area. I parachute there to go Gasparilla, and I visited some people in the area and whatnot, and it's very quiet. It's very friendly, like, so you wouldn't expect in such a rural community where everybody knows everybody to have these issues. And it appears that from the information received that the perpetrators were from outside of the Tabakit area. Right. And this young man was just venturing into his neighborhood. So it's not to say he needed to take an additional precaution in an area that was unknown to him. It is generally safe in the Tabakit area, but the concerns of the citizens in that area, the community, is that of the Brasso police station being opened. And they had some issues, some long-standing issues with the Brasso police station, hopefully, and I did speak to Sergeant Blackman from the central area concerning that station. He indicated that they were in the process of reopening the station as soon as possible, but there were some long-standing issues with the building itself. And hopefully those would be resolved. And the community thinks that, you know, if the station is up and running, and it may really be effective if it happens, that it would be able to deter crime to a greater extent than it is now, as opposed to having the patrol from Grand Couva stay in the area.
Because you could get a faster response.
Of course, yeah, because it is, in terms of distance, it is a great expanse between Grand Couva and Brasso, and it is a very strategic point that you would want the police to man as soon as we can get. Now with our officers at the building, guarding the building, but outside of that, you know, the patrol is there from the Grand Couva police station. Unfortunately, this series of events occurred, even though we had put police in the community. And again, hopefully that issue would be resolved soon. And it's, but the point you're trying to make is that a member of the community had to take extra and additional precaution in his own community, and that tells you the extent of which crime has reached and the extent at which we need to be cautious as we venture even in our own streets, in our own homes, in our own yard, because I've actually seen crime perpetrated against individuals in their own yard, and it's sad. It's sad that that's the reality we live in today.
One of the things, though, like, I understand people want police stations open back up, but it always goes back to me, well, first of all, there are budgetary issues, but also manpower issues. And while, you know, it's easy to say, well, you need to find the men, to some extent, that is actually up to the service itself only so far with regards to its budgets. And I have concerns that if the response is, well, let's reopen a whole set of police stations or minor police posts. Now, I guess in this case, maybe it's not that the service will be stretched thin because you all still had a patrol going there. But that's the thing, like, that all of this sounds like, oh, well, they need more resources to do this.
Well, I mean, it's about management. It's about management at the end of the day. and we hopefully will be able to get that that management issue done properly, because in our jurisdictions, it is that people really venture to the police stations unnecessarily, unless they have to. So you have the patrols and the police come to the community. So what you really want, you don't want police in stations as much as you want them on the streets. So you want them on the beat, you want them on the patrols, you want them in the hotspots, dealing with the situation, the crime situation, and bringing that that reassurance to the public that the police are in the community dealing with the crime, the issues of crime and whatnot.
How widespread is it? Because you said it seems like these individuals came from outside the community.
Yeah.
Like how common of an occurrence is that now?
Yeah, that's a usual occurrence. It's common all the time, because you see, one of the things we've picked up in criminality is that persons would leave one community where they reside in and venture into another community to commit offenses because they are not known to that community. And a lot of the times we capture them is when they're trying to reach back to that community that they came from.
Right.
So you see, so we call it migration. So there's a migration of crime, and you actually have perpetrators actually going into another community to live for some time, to perpetrate crime in that community. So you would see that migration at times. And a lot of times you'll see total opposites. So you'll see criminals from north going into south or venturing into south. You'll see into central, you'll see from the west into central, into east and whatnot. From the northern area to the southern and central
I mean,
area.
to some extent, it's almost like if, because I guess there was a time, right, like in the way past, we're talking before the modern age, where people would look at newcomers with some amount of suspicion.
Correct.
You're new here, right? You're new to the village. And I'm talking about when villages were villages, when they didn't have the modern concrete urban sprawl, right?
Rural,
and when we weren't as advanced, 50, 100, 200 years ago, you look at newcomers that are settling in, you look at newcomers passing through, right? Ooh, drifter, you know, and people will look at them suspiciously. And at some point, we started to, I guess, ease up on that, because in the modern enlightened age, sometimes, I mean, you know, to some extent, in various jurisdictions, you still get crime being perpetrated by people like that, but not always. And now it's almost like if that stereotype, people have to lean into that or be wary of that again, because you're saying, not only will you have, it's not just a temporary thing where they'll come in, commit crimes and leave now for now, but I guess they'll come, live in a different community. I assume it's to basically observe who has what, how do they move, when do they come home, when do they leave home, you know, what kind of car they drive in.
Correct. So it's a wide range of criminals and criminality and how they operate. So you have the organized crime and you have individuals. So you might have an individual, and then you have the hit and miss guys. So you have criminals who perpetrate crimes. They actually venture into an area and look for crimes of opportunity. So you might have a robbery. So you would have a situation where persons might leave one community, and you know they go about. They're going to go about robberies and crime and go on a crime spree in another community, and they look for opportunities of crime. So those are the persons that aren't like the usual organized crimes and persons who go out in that community to live in and reside in a community. And those are the ones that might come up against the police more often than not. Because the ones who in organized crime, as opposed to these who hit and miss or hit and actually get away with it, they have things in place. They have structures in place and how they venture about doing their crimes. I've actually seen, when I was in Central, in Kamnupia Police Station, when I was working there, there was two particular persons. They used to venture to commit house break-ins, and they committed a number of house break-ins.
Right.
In fact, they confessed a good few house break-ins, and they would have taken us and shown us where the houses that they broke into and stole. But how their modus operandi was that they used a high-end vehicle. So they lived in the community, and then they used to take a high-end vehicle. I think it was a Kia Sorento at that time. At that time, it probably was a high-end vehicle. And they used to venture into other communities and pack up. And people would not, and the people in the community would not be suspicious of this vehicle in particular.
Yeah.
And they would then wait until their target left the home, and they would venture into the home, break the home, and commit the robbery, the house breaking.
When you say hit or miss, it reminds me of when they had that search of kidnappings. Some of it seemed to be, oh, well, we kidnapped somebody, we want a ransom, and you're seeing some random person pay up millions of dollars on ransom, and you just left to scratch your head or what's going on there. And then the flip side to that is, you'll have the ones where the victim just randomly escapes because they don't know what they're doing.
Right. So so you have the unofficial, the ungathered, the unorganized crime.
To some extent, unprofessional.
Unprofessional. And then you have the organized one. So in Trinidad, you have a lot of crime across the board, and you have to look out for all these. So what we have in place for that is, in terms of the organized crime, you have the Organized Crime and Narcotics Unit that became the FIU and whatnot, SIU and whatnot. And then you have the gang intelligence units now. So they concentrate on gangs and organized crimes in Trinidad and Tobago. And the CID and the patrols and whatnot would concentrate on the suspicious activity and those that would hit and miss or hit and get away with it. And they would concentrate on suspicious vehicles and information. So what we ask members, and what we have in place for that is what we ask members of the public to do. If you're a landlord and you want to do a background check on somebody in particular, you could go to the police station and ask them to let you know, or you could go to the tenant and ask them for a certificate of character.
From the police? From
the police, and they would provide you with that. So that could be your conditions to rent somebody a property. Although it's not an excuse, not because it might breach your constitutional rights.
To not rent to them.
For not renting them. So you have to understand the weight.
And this might be where laws need to be updated, because I know there are other situations where renters might have prospective people looking to rent their property, and they might not make a drug lab in their apartment or their house. They might not be operating a robbery ring out of the house, but they might be doing other things.
Yeah.
They might,
No, and as I said, I gave the example already where there was a house in particular we hit in Canopia where the guy, he was from the northern area, and he was using this as a stash house, and we got a number of ammunition and narcotics in the home.
But so a stash house, or they might prostitution rings, human trafficking.
Human trafficking.
Smuggling, right?
So we have that as well. So you would have, in a gated community, we also detected offenses in gated communities where the person in charge of the house had victims of human trafficking held at the home. And prostitution was going on. So it's a wide range, and as you said, yes, you could venture into your old community, but and you have to look at the level of suspicion that you treat with.
But that's the thing, for a member of the public, to some extent, it's not like you could report, if you don't actually see any crime being committed, you can't report a newcomer just for them being new. It's like, oh.
You can inform the police. You can go into the station and say, listen, well, I'm seeing some new people in the community, but on what basis? That's the thing, on what basis? Yes.
But if it's a landlord?
If it's a landlord, the landlord is entitled to go and check.
Right, and which is something, and I think what also happens is you might be the owner, but you leave it up to an agent to rent it.
Right. So the agent could also do their background checks and whatnot. Yeah.
That's to some extent, that's if they're willing, right? And maybe landlords, you should speak to your agent about that, because it could vary. To what extent, if you're renting and someone engages in criminal activity, can you be held criminally liable for what goes on?
It depends on what's going on. So if it's a brothel, if it's if trafficking of drugs is taking place and you're aware of it, if you have minors on the property and you haven't done your needful to ensure that they are safe and crime is happening and they're exposed to crime, and you are encouraging the crime, you could be held liable to
something. Once you are aware of whatever's going on enough, you could be roped in.
Yeah, you could be held liable to some extent. But it is an investigation would have to be done to determine to what level you are liable. Because, but as I said, landlords as much as possible, take all, be careful as much as possible in renting.
Because it seems as though real estate, ever since COVID, all throughout now, kind of like it just bottomed out, you know, it just sunk. And one of the things that I assume is going to happen is there's not going to be a lot of people looking for apartments now. You have an apartment and you're looking for the stability, not to move from apartment to apartment for no good reason, right? You're working in North, you have a good enough apartment in North, you're going to stay there, right? Unless you're forced out. So I guess I'm wondering if some people might be so desperate to find a next renter, because that's always stressful. Don't be so stressed out that you're going to just accept anything.
Anybody.
Because even if you're not guilty, even if you didn't know, you still have to go through the investigatory process, right? And, you know, to some extent, the TTPS can't not look into you to see how culpable you were. So if you want to complain, oh, but this is making me look bad, it's like, look, at the end of the day, you know, it is what it is.
If it's glaring. Because if you're seeing trafficking or human trafficking and whatnot going on in your property, and you are there.
Yeah, if you visit the property regularly, it's like, how could you not know that the white powder is not, you know?
Well, you have to do an investigation.
Unmarked plastic packages of white powder, we don't think it's MSG, right? Like we don't think it's salt or sugar.
It
could be flour, but
they might have some excusable reason why they...
Listen. Diddy showed us, it's one thing to have one bottle of baby oil, right? As far as that is, it's one thing to have one unmarked packet of flour, because you might buy some generic flour. It's another thing to have, I don't know, a duffel bag worth of this stuff. So that's just one of those things.
But it's about knowledge. So when you're talking about narcotics, one of the things that comes into play is knowledge. So the police must prove knowledge and control.
Yeah, but like I said, for those who don't want to get caught up in all of this, a little bit of proactivity. Because you're still going to be investigated, and I assume your property is not going to necessarily, it's not like, oh, the police come in, clean everything out in a day, and then it's free to rent, right? No, it's gonna be...
You could be susceptible to the investigation, as I said. But as I said, take the precautionary measures you need to take up front. So if you're a landlord, visit the nearest station. You could probably use the resources at the station to probably do a name check or whatever.
To some extent, when somebody new either comes to stay in a community or passes through a community, would you argue, because again, general members of the public that live there, there's only so much they could do, right? But to some extent, would it be better for them to, I guess for lack of a better word, you don't want everybody to just be like, oh, well, I see nothing, I hear nothing. And when I come home, I rush straight inside and I don't make note of whoever's coming in, and I'm antisocial. You want the public to listen, know who's there, know who comes in, introduce yourself.
Yeah, that's the purpose of neighborhood watches. So we encourage neighborhood watch groups through the community policing program. You go to the community-oriented police groups in every division has community policing officers, and they would assist you to build a neighborhood watch. And this is what neighborhood watches are proactive in doing. They take the proactive steps to ensure that everybody knows everybody in the community. And if there's information to be had, it is passed on reasonably and responsibly to the police, so that the police can take whatever measures and steps. Because there are landlords that would detect narcotics being sold on their property. And they would go to the police and say, listen, narcotics is being sold. And then the police would go and conduct the investigation, get the intelligence they need, visit the location, gather whatever intelligence they need to get the warrant, and proceed to execute a warrant. And this way now the landlord is cleared of any wrongdoing, because they have done their part.
And I guess the whole point is, it's not to, you have a neighborhood watch, ooh, the Millers moved in. Oh, we need to look at them funny for the next 6 months. It's not about that. But you need to try to know, okay, just get to know who they are, right? So that they're not some anonymous person that just waltz in and waltzes out. And I think people need to understand, yes, ideally crime prevention would be the work of the authorities, but on some level, it all comes back to the fact that you cannot have a police officer on every street corner.
No, and
it's just impossible.
And that's the thing about crime prevention. There's no one term to describe crime prevention. It's a
Right.
very wide ranging. It's multi-sectorial. It's disciplinary in the approaches you use. Crime prevention can be as simple as teaching kindergarten children how to behave with authority as they grow older.
Right.
And it could be
Right.
even greater than that.
Right.
So it's all about respecting authority. It's all about obeying the laws, whether someone is there in an authoritative position or not, to make sure you have done it. It could be anything. So it is all about getting the culture and the behavior of persons to behave or treat with, in the correct way, the laws of the country and stay within those laws.
And would you say that part of crime prevention, and it's similar to home security. Home security is not having, spike traps and crocodiles on chains and automatic sentry turrets to just riddle intruders with holes. It's about, I don't have dark shadows all over my property.
Yeah.
I have cameras, I have lights.
So you're talking about crime prevention through environmental design. Correct. Yeah.
Right, but a lot of it might seem silly. And I know of an ex-Delta Force guy that's like, he talks about, I think I brought this up, he talks about all of these things that might seem unnecessary and silly and very minor. But it's like, no, all of this stuff is important. And it's similar to getting to know who's moving in, or there's a drifter walking through, somebody who we don't know. You're not going to necessarily be rude to him, but you do want it to some extent.
No, you have to be reasonable in your approach. Yeah.
Well, you might not even necessarily approach him, but you're not going to hide from them and avoid them. No. To some extent, it's like, oh, I see you, and my neighbor saw you, and my other neighbor saw you.
And it might be about letting them know you saw them.
Yes.
It might just be as simple as that.
Because what that does is, there's no shadow that they're hiding behind. No. There's no anonymity.
No.
It's not a featureless face. Or a 5'11" to 6 foot Afro-Trinidadian or Indo-Trinidadian, that's like what, half the population? That's not enough, right? So, well, what I mean to say, when you just have like a generic height, generic build, white t-shirt and jeans, that narrows it down to nothing.
Nothing.
But if now they realize, oh, this community is not just hiding in the house, but they're aware of what's going on. Exactly.
They're not going into the border of harassment.
Right, you're not harassing them.
You're not harassing anybody. It's about, listen, we are looking at everybody. Whether you are a suspect or not, we're looking around. We're making sure that when the dog barks, we know why the dog barking.
Yeah, so they might rob somebody, but the point is the community could then say, oh, we saw, these are all the people we saw pass through. These are all the people that are new. These are all the people X, Y, and Z. And it's not automatically going to be them, but the point is the police are able to now investigate everybody.
Narrow it down, because and at the end of the day, when the police comes to investigate the crime, you might not want to be an open eyewitness because of whatever fear you have. But you might be, well, officer, I was up around that time. I really heard a dog barking, and when I looked out, I saw a gentleman in a red T-shirt and whatnot, and he was standing there. And then that location might have a CCTV footage. It might have better camera systems. It might have better lighting, and maybe somebody else might have saw it. And then again, you don't necessarily have to be an open eyewitness. You could be a confidential and anonymous informant as well.
And I'll say this, because it's encouraged for houses to maybe have their own security system.
Yeah.
But Tunapuna, they have the Eagle Eye project.
Right.
I don't know how widespread it has gone, but that has been funded privately.
Yeah.
Now, again, I don't know how easy it is for your community to do that, but the point is, you can engage with the police to help set up a neighborhood watch, and then maybe start to engage what else we could do.
That was an excellent venture by the police and in that community and the business. It was a really good collaboration. I actually worked for Carnival 2024 in Tunapuna.
Right.
And I saw it firsthand, and it's an excellent idea. I think it should be extended to the entire Trinidad and Tobago.
I think there's plans to do it, but I guess part of it is now you have to get the donations.
Yeah. However it's done, it should be done, and it should not be something that's open resource to persons, and it shouldn't be everybody's knowledge that, listen, this is in this community. The police should have access to it to some extent and be able to respond.
But wouldn't it be a good deterrent, like, we don't just have, because I guess one of the things is, if I have a camera in my house, right, and I give that evidence up, I could make myself a target. A lot of people are probably thinking that way.
Yeah.
But if there's a camera on a street light,
yeah.
that is technically, the feed goes to the state, goes to the police station.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden there's no witness to intimidate, there's no household to say,
No,
hey.
you have, no, we would deal with the technical evidence and whatnot, and we would use the footage to advance the investigation.
Right, no, but so my point is, like, you might not necessarily want some things to be known to the public,
yeah.
but you still want, hey, this area, we have cameras.
Yeah,
right?
To the extent,
so
to the extent and the details
yeah.
should be withheld from the general public, but especially the criminals. But you would want this idea, this proactive measure to be set up in the entire Trinidad and Tobago, because it is a great deterrent, and it seems to be working, especially in Tunapuna. And
right.
I think, yeah, I think it would be greatly appreciated throughout Trinidad and Tobago if it's implemented.
And I guess that's the thing, right? Once they don't have the capacity to, the confidence, we could rob and get away with it.
Yeah.
Because the police, we have seen multiple stories. Yes, we could complain about the media detection rate and all that, but we've seen police respond to robberies, toot sweet once, you know, hey, this car, these people, this street, and in some cases, it's not like one-offs. Intercepted now for now, 5 minutes later, and half an hour later, before they get far. This might be some of the oh gosh, I can't remember the term you use, but the unprofessionals, when they just kind of hit or miss, when they try and come in, kind of see what they could do randomly and leave.
Yeah, crimes of opportunity, yeah.
All right, well, for this week, we'll open up the phone lines, but we'll continue the discussion. Time is ticking.
Well, based on the last thing you said there, and it's about getting the information, we have the WhatsApp channel. So the TTPS has introduced this WhatsApp channel where you could download. You go to the WhatsApp and you go into the search engine and you check.
I'll admit, I found it online.
Yeah.
There's a link on Facebook, but then now it, I think you would be able to access it through your web browser.
Yeah.
Right. You'll have to sign in on your web browser. You could download WhatsApp, but I have WhatsApp downloaded and it's not getting me through that.
Oh.
The reason why I say that is when I tried to look for it on my phone, I couldn't find it.
Oh, well, we'll clear
easily.
But it's a great tool to have if everybody can have it, because it tells you about safety tips, carnival safety tips, emergency routes that you could use during the carnival period. So you might have streets blocked off, and the police will advise you where to pass.
I would also argue that maybe checking the TTPS's Facebook page on a regular basis is also a good idea. It's something that I myself do not do often enough.
And the website, because the website now has the services of getting the permits. So they extended the period to get the permits for
those who need to get carnival permits. Yeah. We do have a call on the line. Digger Martin on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on here.
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Mr. Sean and today. I don't want to say officer or ex-officer of the TTP. Yes.
No, he is still an officer.
Yeah.
Ashraf retired. He is still an officer.
Well,
he's still an officer, not retired yet.
Not retired yet.
No.
Okay, good. So use the one I want to ask a pointed question.
Oh lordy.
Yeah.
No, we're not calling. We still down on. We are mortal. We're not immortal yet. Listen to me. Two investigations that the former police commissioner started. One was the Brent Thomas issue, and the other one, 9 months ago, April, May, with respect to ammunitions all over the place with national security marking, etc., TTDF and police. Earlier, Christopher said she was opening an investigation with respect to that. Brigadier Alfonso said it has to be deeper. It has to be an audit. Where is that investigation? Because 25,000 ammunition is questionable where it disappeared to. When that fiasco happened, everybody said they're going to do the audit. If that audit was done, it is likely that we would not be in a place like we are now. Cannot answer where it is gone. The fact that it is 3-4 days and they're hiding to basically tell us where it is tells me we have a real problem. And we're going back to the state facilitating nefarious acts with respect to the loss of that ammunition, it tells me that there is no accountability and somebody is sleeping on the job. The other question is, I'm going to focus on accidents on the road, and more particularly Sergeant Brent Batson is really promoting something that I believe the TTPS is falling apart. I had the opportunity, and it was a frightening one, to drive on the road midnight on 2 occasions. For basically, I shouldn't be out there, but I had to do that to drop my one of my kids to work at a hospital that requires 24/7. And driving on the road, there was no markings because it disappears when the road is wet. And what I noticed, there were several police vehicles on the road. So I want to know if the police is part of the continuous improvement with respect to road accident and mitigating it, or they stand idle by. Because if the police was driving on the road, and I see a lot of them behind me, because I know they are estimating position on the road, because they passed me. I was driving like a snail, not one who eaten rubby plants. I am saying the morning that they hung up their attire, they should have done a report to the senior officer, and the senior officer should have passed that on to the Ministry of Transport to help with the mitigation of all of these. The roads and the signage and the white markings and the barriers are all over the place. And that contributing to it, and the TTPS has to play a vital role in that. Because if they don't do things, they will see how dangerous it is. Carnival, midnight, everybody driving. From the time water falls on the road, we are prone to a disaster. Go and have a nice morning.
Thank you, caller. I'll add to that. There was one case where it was my fault. There was a stop sign that during the day, like the paint was scraped up.
Yeah.
At night, the reflective paint allowed you to see it, but at day there was no contrast.
Yeah.
Also, there was a truck that was kind of parked like right in front of the sign. Because I noticed one of the other examples I have, right here on Gattaca Street, there's a no right turn sign.
Yeah, right.
But it's so far from the corner. It's so forward away from the corner.
Yeah.
I initially didn't notice it myself. Somebody
Right.
told me, and I was like, I understand. But then I constantly see people now, they drive up to the end and they want to turn right. And I'm like, well, they probably don't even know. Sometimes they're worthless, but I would imagine when traffic is heavy, you're not going to try and force your way. I assume that's what the sign is for, to help with the flow of traffic.
Yeah.
Right? And they just, I could see that they don't really realize it, because you're not looking for a sign like that in advance to the corner. You're looking to, I get to the corner, I don't see a sign, so I assume I could turn right.
Yeah.
And it's things like that that I think he's talking to.
Yeah, of course. With respect to the first issue, I would have to reach out to Corpcom Media, TTPS, to update.
With regards to,
yeah,
I do wonder, to what extent does something, okay, bullets are missing from the defense force. Does the TTPS even have jurisdiction for that?
Of course, if that would initiate an investigation because of the circumstances.
Let's just say that there's no, like, if there's criminal activity, yes, but if there's no evidence of any sort of criminal undertaking,
yeah,
will it still be a need?
Well, they would have to report it to the TTPS if they needed to, for whatever reason it went missing. So it could, if it fell off a ship on the way to Trinidad, I mean, 25,000 rounds is a lot of rounds. So it depends on the circumstances that caused it to be missing. If it was at a bunker and it was secured and it goes missing, it would initiate a criminal investigation.
Okay, because I know in some jurisdictions, you know, some countries like in America, they would have their own internal police force
even in Trinidad,
that.
Even in Trinidad and Tobago, every ministry does have their own internal investigations.
Right.
They leave up the criminal one to the police.
Yes.
So even with PCA, with Ministry of Education, you'll have incidents at schools, you'll have incidents at the hospital.
Once firearms and ammunition are involved, potentially that's all going to fall under the TTPS.
Of course. So in any case like that,
we do have sugar on a sign line, sorry.
Yeah. And then with the second thing, with these signs, remember that falls under Ministry of Works and Transport. And there are open lines of communication between ministries. So when police officers detect these issues, and they do write to the senior officers, they would indicate, and the senior officer will then pass it on to the ministry.
We'll take the call from Shogunas. I have a comment to make on that, but I understand what you're saying. Shogunas, good morning, you're on the air.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good day.
Last time we talked, you tried to put the blame partly on the brain drain in Trinidad. And I disagreed with you, and you say, well, yeah, that is why they can't fix drains to have proper drainage and all these flooding. That is just the opposite. Long ago, when the people used to build drains here, they used to even go to school. They used to use Isha marling with a spirit level, and the drains used to have proper grade. Today, with all the theodolite and all they have, it is the drains are useless. They're not going anywhere. And that don't call for no big set of brain, and that has to do with no brain drain. That has to do with brainless politicians who do not enforce the law.
Well, that's why we have brainless politicians, because the potential good ones left. So that 2 generations, 3 generations down the line, their children could run for office in the States or in Canada or in the United Kingdom.
That is why, that is the cause of the problem. That is all I am saying. Long ago, we had politicians who wanted to give back, who provided oversight, and they didn't even used to get paid.
Right, but ironically, Professor, that is also my point, that we're losing some of our best capable people, and things are being run potentially by less capable people.
Yes. Well,
because of brain drain to some extent.
What you say is true. I know people, top-class people, who leave because they couldn't take on the politician.
Exactly.
Okay, well, thank you.
All right, Professor, thank you. You see, we didn't fully disagree there. I wanted to get to your last point, because I think people don't seem to understand. Because I'm very certain everybody would have worked a job where they reported something and the boss didn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Now, in this case,
we have no control.
The boss doesn't mean your supervisor. No. The boss doesn't mean the ministry in general, right?
Well, no.
But y'all, to say that you don't see results, you see the police driving on the roads, you see a problem that seems obvious, it doesn't mean because you don't see results that the officers haven't reported it up.
Of course, and if it's an emergency, we report it to command center. So if there's let me say a hole opens up in the roadway.
Right.
Yeah, we would call into the emergency department, which is command center. Command center would reach out to the necessary agency to come and deal with that situation. But that's an emergency. But if it's like road markings and poor lighting and whatnot, we would write reports to our seniors, and our seniors would pass it on to the necessary other seniors, through the Commissioner of Police, to the different ministries and whatnot, to highlight the problem. And I myself have done it before because of the road markings and whatnot. Now, whether or not it's resolved is up to the ministry, because there is a traffic management unit in the ministry that deals with road signs and whatnot. We, the TTPS, have road signs at our disposal that are commissioned by the Commissioner of Police, and he delegates where these road signs are placed.
Those are mainly the no parking.
And those are the no parkings, like right turn, left turn, and whatnot. And those are gazetted. So when the officers put a sign down, they must make a note in the diary. I think it lasts, the authorities for 14 days, but it's gazetted. And that authority lasts for 14 days.
We have San Fernando on the line. Good morning, caller. You on here? Caller, morning.
Good morning, Sean. Morning, ESPN.
Good day. Good day.
Well, that is a pet peeve that I have with that the professor talked about drains in this country. It seems as if the engineers in this country who are working in the ministries need to go back to school. And that is not my comment anyway. I came into the last end of the show when you all were talking about the Tunapuna CCTV collaboration with the business people. And let me say this. I have observed that in the UK. I have seen it up in operation in Manchester and in Liverpool. I think they also have it in London. And it is an amazing system, because those cities, they have what they call CCTV units and they operate it within the urban areas. And there's a collaboration between the police and the business people. So the police has access to all those businesses on the high streets and the streets around the high street to their CCTVs.
Yeah.
It's an integrated system. It's a wonderful, amazing system. So then they just have officers on patrol, and I have seen how they track. There's an incident, and they track a person for.
Yeah.
You would be surprised how long they can track a person, and then they just call the cars and they intercept the person. And I think we need a little more of that because. Let me ask you, if you actually have a CCTV unit as yet in the service?
Of course, yeah. We have the CCTV unit in TTPS, and we also have operational units. So we have different units that monitor the CCTV, the government CCTV footage.
Right.
So there's national security. I think other ministries might have CCTV and whatnot that are monitored. And then with the Eagle Eyes, you have there's a collaboration between private and police.
Right. But they'll have a unit into the Pune.
Yes, and there's a particular room and whatnot. And I actually looked at it. And I remember on the period that I was looking, we were looking at a suspect, and he was like looking into cars. And we were able to send up a patrol. Before he was able to, if he was going to do anything, we were able to send up a patrol. So it was on a lonely street. And he may not have known that there was footage. Yeah, so and we were monitoring him. And he was looking at cars as he went along the road, and we were able to send a patrol to pick him up.
Cool. Anything else?
What I would like to see, quickly, Sean, what I would like to see is instead these business, what do you call it, these business chambers that keep complaining, they need to step up. That's what happens. They need to step up and say, hey, we willing to do this thing with you all.
Yeah.
Instead of, because apparently the only Pune business chamber that stepped up.
Yep.
And all the others that are always complaining, they need to step up. Have a good day, guys.
Thank you, Kola. We're running out of time, so we have to close the show.
Yeah.
I'll just say this, and ironically, I started thinking about this with the complaints about the drainage and the engineers, and that's a whole other kettle of fish, right? You have the Ministry of Works, and I've always said, if we get the drainage problem solved and we could drain floodwater into reservoirs, we could also potentially solve the water supply issue, at least in some areas. But that's very complicated, right? I haven't figured that all out. But one of the things I do think, cameras, networks are not necessarily going to be cheap.
No.
I think part of the problem is the business community, they don't necessarily want to spend any money. But then the trick is, does the government have the money to spend? Because this is the thing. 40 years ago or 50 years ago, a police service didn't need this in the budget. Our country didn't need this in the budget. No. So now what value do you put? Because ironically, you could say, well, we're spending X amount of money on cameras and crime is down. Do we need to spend money on cameras still? Yes!
Yeah.
Because that's why crime is down. And it's one of those things where, it seems weird that you have to put out all of these resources when we don't have resources to put out. This is why corruption needs to be solved, folks. I'll just put that out there. We can't afford corruption right now. And we need to understand. People would think, oh, well, if things really got bad, will people still be corrupt and steal when, we're running out of money? Let's just say, potentially rhetorically, hypothetically. So Vietnam was collapsing in the Vietnam War. And America was pulling out. And they knew it was collapsing. And they still did not fix corruption. And that entire democratic government collapsed. Fortunately, the government of Vietnam, I think, has turned out to be relatively reasonable for its people and has helped. And, but that's the thing. A democratic elected government was so corrupt, they couldn't even hold themselves back while their country was collapsing during a period of war. So what's going to happen now when God is a Trinity and nothing's necessarily looking that bad, right? Crime is not out of control, according to some, include elected and unelected. Things aren't that bad yet. They're not going to be incentivized to stop. They're just going to leave when it gets that bad. They're just going to try to abandon ship. And that's one of the things about brain drain too. Yeah. Not everybody is thinking, I need to abandon ship when I leave, but the point is we get the negative consequence. And with regards to the TPS, who knows? Who knows how many people in the diaspora, or their children end up applying to be police officers in their new home that could have maybe had that vocation and end up being the next ASP route in Trinidad and Tobago.
Of course, yeah.
So with that said, thanks to all the callers. Thank you, ASP, for joining us.
Yeah.
I think that please pay attention, especially when our media masters like S. Arun speaks about crime prevention, because it might not seem like much, folks, but being aware and letting the criminals know you are aware, not just you as an individual, but the community, that goes a long way to ensure.
And take advantage of the resources that the TTPS has at your disposal, because especially with the community-oriented policing section, building neighborhood watch groups in your community, it would really go a long way. And then channel that information to the police somehow, whether it be openly or anonymously. You have the 555, you have the 800 tips, you have the 999. The 999 is not anonymous, just to be...
Okay, but I just want to close. There was a situation, one of our guys was talking about it because he knew of the person. She was shot a stray bullet.
Right.
I just want to warn people who think, oh, if I keep my head down and stay out of it, I'm safe. It's like, no, you're not automatically safe.
We as Trinidadians need to stop thinking that crime only happens when it reaches your doorstep.
Right.
It is all around us.
But you could do everything you can to not be involved. It could still end up on your doorstep.
It could still end up on your doorstep. And it will be always our business to look out for each other. So let's try to do that from now.
Folks, look out for each other in order to have a good day. You could do it if you try. Don't just make it a good day for yourself. Keep everybody else in mind. And with that said, it's nice to be nice. Stay safe. Remember your allegiance to each other and the Republic. We will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Hi, I'm Claudette, radiographer at the radiology departments at the community hospital. We offer high-quality service with state-of-the-art equipment in X-ray, ultrasound, CT, and mammogram. Come, our friendly staff awaits you.
Give us a call at 235-5479.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drum heads, and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also